Hi everyone and welcome to the Athletic Mastery Podcast. And today I'm delighted to welcome David Buchanan to the show. David, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Good morning, Chris. I'm very well. Are you?
Yeah, really, really good. Thank you. So what is it that got you to the position where you are right at this moment?
A lot of hard work, but so obviously for people that don't know me, I was a professional footballer for 18 years. Recently retired back into July 2021. I was at Chesterfield, my last club, and now I'm a financial advisor, specialising protection. So that's your life insurance, critical illness, private medical health, injury insurance, critical illness for adults and children, that sort of thing. Just making sure that, if the worst happens, that financially your family are in the best position as possible. And this job came about as luck, really. I was in lockdown. I was furloughed from Chesterfield, which is another story. I think we were one of the first clubs to do it. I was injured at the time, so I couldn't train or anything like that. And I just managed to have a random conversation with one of my friends, Joe Thompson, who's from Rochdale. Probably a lot of people know him. And Joe just reached out to me, just saying, "Have you got all your insurances and stuff intact?" I had. He said, "Would you mind giving me a free review? A lot of footballers have it in place, but you don't really know what you're covered for." Being a friend, I said, "Yeah." So that's how it started, really. He looked into my insurances, ended up getting me better cover than I was getting through a financial advisor called Brad, who worked for our company, Bespoke, at the time. And then from there, he was just like, "What are you doing with your time at the minute?" And I was like, "Well, not much. I'm furloughed, you know, I'm sat at home injured, got nothing to do." And he's like, "Do you fancy having a conversation about doing this job?" And at first I just laughed it off because, like, sales, financial services, it was just something foreign to me. Never done anything like that. As I say, I've been lucky enough to play football from when I was 16 all the way up until I retired at 35. So that's all I knew. But I've always been somebody that wanted to, educate myself. I got a degree while I was playing football, first class degree in sports journalism and broadcasting. So I just thought, what have I got to lose? And I looked into it. And at the time, I was running an over 35 like vets team, just Sunday league. And one of our lads actually got an horrendous injury, one of the worst injuries you've ever seen. Like, broke his leg, his ankle, both bones in his leg. And he was a self-employed plasterer. And he was going to be out of work for a long, long time. It looked, when we seen the injury, it looked like he might lose his foot. That's how bad it was. It's the worst I've ever seen. And we had to raise like we did a big benefit do for him. Raised him over 10 grand. We did loads of charity events, football matches, walks, whatever you name it. We all stuck together, but it still really wasn't enough. And when I was learning to do this, Joe was like, "Do you know, like, you can get injury cover alongside, your protection? So whether it be with your life insurance, critical illness, income protection." And I was like, "No." I said, "I need some myself," because I knew I was just coming out of football. And that's how it started from there. So I was basically speaking to the lads saying, "Listen, this bad injury, we don't want any of you lads like that. You're self-employed. Have you done this? Have you done that?" And I basically started sending names and numbers over to a financial advisor. And then I was doing well at that. And the bosses were just like, "You'd be good at this job. Is it well, you're still in contract, why don't you qualify to become a fully regulated advisor? And if it's not for you, it's not for you." And that's what I did. And 2 years down the line, I'm still here.
Yeah, and it's great that you actually managed to do that, because obviously you're the living proof of what you're doing, and ultimately people buy people, people buy people's experiences, and most importantly, you've prepared for life after football, because I think we've seen it a lot. I think it was over 1,000 players get released from scholars all the way up to senior professionals, and having conversations with footballers previously and rugby players, is they don't really know what to do, so they go into a period of suffering from bad mental health, end up unfortunately going to food banks, and then of course they get all this the wrong publicity sort of thing. So it just shows that having the right people around you that are going to look after you is a key thing with this. So in terms of obviously your football career, one of the big things as a performance coach that I get asked is how do you get into becoming a professional footballer? It's every boy's and now obviously girls' dream as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I think football just for a young lad, especially. I think my era, Chris, was the last era of where we always used to never be in the house. You know, iPads and iPhones and switches and PlayStations and stuff. They weren't really about. So we was always out playing football. That's what we did after school, at a weekend, any spare time we got, we was out the front, you know, on the lawns, wherever it was, on school fields after everyone had gone, you know, playing games of headers and volleys and knockouts and things like that. So for me, that's how football really started. I had an older brother who's 4 years older than me. So I was always like being taken around with older lads, which I think was brilliant for me at the time. But basically, that's how it started. Just started playing with my brother from a young age. And then I joined a Sunday league team called Roach Dynamos when I was like 9 years old. So I wasn't one of these footballers as well. Like my son, he loves it at the minute, but he's not at a team or anything. Or you see 5 and 6 year olds now, they're already at Man City, Man United, which is great. I didn't really get into teams and that. I played football, kicking the ball about, but I didn't really join a team until I was like 9 years old. But in terms of like being a footballer, fast forwarding that a bit, it was just basically playing in school teams. Obviously, Sunday league teams being recognised by professional clubs when I was like 9, 10, 11. But to get it, you probably speak to a lot of athletes. I think 16 for a lot of people is like crunch time. And I remember I was at Bolton Wanderers at the time as a 15-year-old. I was playing for the under 18s and I was doing really well. Sam Allardyce was the manager at the time. And it was coming to crunch time, leaving school. Are you going to get an apprenticeship or are you not? And I thought I was one of them players where I was just nailed on because I was doing well. I was in the teams, playing like a year and 2 years above. And I'm only small, always have been. And I just remember the conversation the first time I ever got released in the office. I just went in there expecting to get like a 3-year scholarship, Premier League club, and just got told, I wasn't in the plans in terms of like what they were looking for. They didn't see me making it into the first team as like an 18, 19-year-old, which is what they want. Got told, physically, I'm not the type of player that they're looking for. So that was hard, really, really hard. So I think key points for me to be a footballer is you've got to be dedicated. You've got to have the right attitude in terms of any sports person. You've got to have the right attitude to accept rejection and accept praise, which is difficult at times as well when you're doing really well. And self-belief, no matter what anybody says to you, if you believe that you can do it and you go out and do the right things, which you know are going to get to where you need to be, then ultimately you will get where you want to. I'm living proof of that. People have more talent in my dressing rooms than me, but I always found a way to make sure I was in a team or was a captain of a team, because every day, if someone was quicker than me, I used to be fitter than them. If they were stronger than me, I would be in the gym longer than them. It's just one of them things that's the way it was, because, and I think that's what you've got to do. You're going to get rejections along the way, but if your attitude, your mentality, your self-belief is right, and you do the right things, you'll ultimately get your rewards.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, resilience is obviously a key thing, and unfortunately, it's not something that gets taught in schools or even at clubs. I mean, obviously the higher you go at the food chain, the more clinicians you're going to get access to, the more high performance coaches, physio, psychologists, etc. But unfortunately, when you're in the lower leagues, like your leagues 1, 2, and even below, it's what you're willing to do outside of the box as well, isn't it? You can't just take what you've got for granted and not be willing to invest the time, the effort, or sometimes even the resources to go out and get the expertise to cover yourself. We just have to look at the likes of Ronaldo and Ibrahimovic back in the day, where they had their own nutritionist, they had their own physio, and very rarely would they be injured, and obviously when they were, it was for a short period of time. And yourself as a financial advisor now, having the cover, which I've taken out as well, which is absolutely fantastic. I mean, how important do you feel it is for academy players up to senior pros, to have this cover? Because ultimately, they're not going to have it in the contracts, are they, at any club?
No, I think it's massively important. As I say, you touched on something brilliant there in terms of like yourself as a performance coach, and I've witnessed it at different levels. Obviously, when I was at Preston and we was getting promoted to the Championship, the setup was unbelievable. We had unbelievable facilities, gym, great training ground, played in a beautiful stadium, the best staff. You have chefs on, you have your breakfast mate, so everything like that. But then I've been at other clubs where a couple of years later, and you're stopping off at services to get your breakfast. There's no pre-match meals, stopping off and staying overnight in hotels. Excuse me. So that's adapting in it, and your facilities and stuff like that. And I just think when you've got all them things there to make you better, it's up to you not to take them for granted, but benefit from them, use them. If you've got a fitness coach that is there and he's there for you or the team, ask him questions. How can I get stronger? How can I get quicker? I'm a fullback. I'm only 5'7". How can I get my standing jump good so I'm strong in the air? How can I turn quick? All these little things. I need to be the fittest in the team. Whatever it is, you've got a video analysis there. Can I look at every clip of it, every opponent that I'm playing? How many times he crossed on his left foot? How many times does he, like to run at you or running behind? And these are what all the top clubs do. But ultimately, the lower you down, you have to use your own initiative and start going asking questions and getting the information yourself. In terms of your question about the job that I do now, I'm onto footballers all the time. One, what you said at the start of the interview or podcast when this chat was saying, I want to help as many people when they transition out the game as I possibly can. So I'm trying to build my own team now. I've already got one professional at TNS who's just recently qualified, which is good. But with football, you have got a lot of time on your hands. And as you say, whether you're earning, 20 grand a year or 200 grand a year, your lifestyle is relevant. So that money will come to an end. So within that time, you've got to think, what do I want to do? Whether that's be a performance coach, you want to be a manager, you want to be in business, finance, education. Go and do it while you've got the time. And while you've got time left on your contract, don't just think, oh, well, I'm going to get paid for the next 2 years anyway. Because let me tell you, it comes knocking at your door when you least expect it, and that phone doesn't pick up anymore. So my conversations when I've spoke to footballers, Chris, has been like, do you know what you... And this is for any family really, is just basically, I'm not going in there to sell things straight away. I just ask people the question, have you got cover in place? Yeah, I've got cover in place. Like, have you got a family? Yeah. Have you got a mortgage? Yeah. Have you got kids? Yeah. Are you self-employed or do you get sick pay from work? And I just get all this information and just try and respond to that and just say, well, can I have a look at your cover just to make sure your kids are covered on your critical illness policy? And a lot of people don't think that you can do that. If you're self-employed or don't get any sick pay from your job, I'm asking the question, well, if you were to have a bad accident or you were to get injured playing and, your contract comes to an end and you've done your cruise ship and you're out for another 9-10 months, your bills are 2-3 grand a month. Where are you getting this money from? And this is when people start to realise, well, I never even thought about like income protection, as you say, injury cover for anyone who is self-employed. Anyone really can get injury cover, because we all have got, a lot of us have got hobbies, whether it be golf, tennis, football, horse riding, rugby, golf. We go to the gym, so we can all pick up injuries anywhere. And the thing is, the proof's in the pudding and claims. I've had a claim for a cruise ship, which I've looked at my cruise ship. This year already, I've had a broken hand, a dislocated shoulder and a dislocated kneecap. So these are all people who don't get any sick pay from the job. They've ended up getting a lump sum payment for their injuries, and then they're getting a payment as well to cover the bills. So it's just massively important just to realise, like, in everything that we do, am I like covered correctly in terms of anything? Would you, if I ask you a question, like I always say, when you drive your car, are you third party or are you fully comp on your car insurance?
Oh, that's the key thing, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, for me, used to be.
You're fully comp, aren't you? So you're
Yeah.
paying for something just to drive your car. You don't want to crash your car, but you're fully comp, so you can. If anything happens to you, you're sorted. If anything happens to your car, you're going to get it sorted. If anything happens to their car, they're going to get it sorted, and it's all paid for your insurance. Do you know what I mean? So the job I'm in now is basically the same, but we just don't wake up and think that, you know, we might die today, but
You
tomorrow's
don't.
never guaranteed.
It always happens at the worst possible time. I mean, it's funny you talk about the car insurance, because up until the year, I had a really bad car accident about 9, 10 years, nearly 10 years ago now, and I was on my way to Bradford Bulls to have an interview, to do some coaching there. Funnily enough, that year was the first year that I went fully comp, and then had my accident. How I'm still here, I don't know, but touch wood, I'm all right. But because I had the fully comprehensive cover, obviously the car was there within a couple of days. Accident cover was there. Everything was good. So on that, where can people get hold of you to find out a little bit more about what they need to be considering for personal injury and
Yeah,
everything, David, on
as I
that?
say, I'm on all social medias. I'm sure you can tag me in my social medias, Facebook. Predominantly, I use Facebook. People are different, but I've got big followings on all social medias. But I just find Facebook for me is the best way people interact. There's more people sort of put statuses on there and that. But my company that I work for are called Bespoke Financial. We're the number one broker within like the Primus network, which is the biggest in the UK. And as I said, I'm self-employed. I work for myself. So I understand the importance of that, because I've gone from 18 years of being like, not institutionalized, but every year I know I'm going to get paid at the end of the month for 2 or 3 years or 1 year. Now I'm not. I'm unemployed every single day. So I'm always there to ask a question. And as I say, I'm not just there for the hard sell to anybody. I'm one of them people, as you know, from yours. I'm there to give people advice. That's my job. I can only give you my full advice on what I think you need for your current circumstances, and I will put you with a provider that to a budget that suits you. I'll also give you the best. You can't get the advice I can give you on it off Google or off a comparison website. It's just the same as I can't go on YouTube and look at how to get quicker or stronger. But if I come to you or use a specialist like yourself, that one-on-one for, well, why don't you try this? Have you done this before? You can look at like my mechanisms of my body and just all these little things, how I'm moving. I can't get that things, and it's basically just the same job. But ultimately, I just want to protect as many families as possible, because I've had it in my own family where policies haven't been written into trust and people die, so it goes to probate, and people don't get the money to say pay the mortgage off straight away, or someone is diagnosed with cancer, which is 1 in 2, and they have to leave work. So all of a sudden, that 20, 30, 40, 50 grand a year job, now they've left work because they're struggling with cancer. Or worst case scenario, as I said, I've had it in my own family. What about if the children get cancer? Just as an example, if the children get cancer, you want to be good to every treatment with them. You want to help them, support them emotionally, physically. But on the flip side of that is my job is if your children to get ill, I can make sure you get a lump sum payout for that illness, so you can take time off work. So my job it's so rewarding, but it's an horrible job at the same time, because I only come into play when bad things happen. I only come into play when somebody has got injured and they've broken their ankle and, they need they're going to have time off work or whatever. But the good thing is I can go, well, you're glad you took that policy out for less than £1 a day, because now you're getting £4,000 for your ankle and you're going to get £1,000 a month towards your bills until you go back to work. Is that all right? Yeah. Or, you know, I'm so sorry, your husband's passed away, but I've been onto the provider for you, you know, just to let you know that your house is getting paid off. You're going to get paid £200,000. And it never bring anyone back, Chris, but when I've done this job, you can't not be emotional enough to know that you're actually helping people. And that is all I have wanted to do. When I played football, I was someone, if you ask teammates, managers, I was someone that wanted to help people. And that's why I love my job. It's difficult, as I say. You know, I'm not one of these people who's going to say it's not difficult, because, as I said, people don't go out there and think, you know, I'm going to go to the doctor today and get told I've got cancer, or I'm going to walk out the house today and I'm going to have a car accident just like yourself, or I'm going to play football or play rugby at the weekend and I'm going to have an injury where it's going to put me out of work for a couple of months. And that's just what I'm here for. I just want to help as many people as possible, anybody. But because I'm from a football background and a sporting background, I want to help as many athletes as possible in terms of what you said. I don't think enough gets done for people transitioning out of sport, professional sport.
No, I totally agree. And the key message, of course, there is, you know, don't wait until the last minute. You know, make sure you do your due diligence. Make sure you've got all your covers in place. Make sure, you know, if you're a footballer, whether you're a scholar, whether you're self-employed or whoever, do your due diligence and make sure your arcs are covered. Because
I think the key thing is, for me, for parents as well of these young pros or footballers that are 18, 19, 20, or the one thing with protection insurance, it's quite simple, right? The younger you are, the healthier you are, the cheaper your policies are going to be. If you're a professional athlete, you're going to be fit, you're going to really have no problems. Chances are you're not going to have had any family history. You might have of like bad medicals. You know, you're going to be getting the best cover as possible for as cheap as possible. And the one thing is with like protection insurance, it's guaranteed. So when you take it out, if you take it out today, whatever you take it out today, that's guaranteed that then payments are guaranteed to that policy. So if you're 20-year-old, you might be able to get this, say, 5 times the amount of the cover of a 40-year-old for less price. So if I'm 37 now, for example, my daughter's 24, she's got all her own personal covering. Like, she's covered nearly as much as me, but paying 3 times less because she's young and she's healthy, you know. And what I always say to people is, with protection, it's the most important thing you need, because it's when the worst things happen. And I would only ever protect anybody for their affordability and never sell it. I always ask, what can you afford? And we'll get you the protection in place as best we can for what you can afford. Because ultimately, I always say, don't look at it as something that's going to be a stranglehold around your neck. Look at it as like your rent, or, you know, look at it as like people pay £100 a month for Sky, but won't pay £25 a month to get income protection. Or they've got 3 kids and won't get life insurance, but they'll, as you say, they'll spend £200 a month on Just Eat. It's just mental.
Ridiculous. It is
because it's just effective, because people don't realise it. And I think for the older, like ourselves as well, can get into like the depths of it. But when your policies are not written in trust, or you haven't done a will, or, you know, this kind of trusts and wills, like trust can avoid inheritance tax. You can make sure you get your money straight away, not to avoid it to go to probate. You can make sure the right people get the right money at the right time. So when you write your will, you know, if you've got kids and something happens where husband and wife were to get in an accident and both die together, you've already written your will and you know who's going to look after your kids when you're no longer about. And that's like the minor details, but that's when you're in front of people explaining them. But I think it's just important. But you've summed it up. Just do your like due diligence. You won't get in your car. People insure the washers, the phones, and everything. You won't drive your car without insurance, because it's law that you can't do it.
Oh,
If it
yeah.
was law that you had to have personal protection, where if you die, your funeral needed to prepare for, or you needed to make financially sure that you were leaving money to your children so they were secure, or your husband or wife or partner or whoever it is, we'd all have it in place. Like I say, in America and stuff like that, it's mandatory. Like, they're all insured to the eyeballs. You know what it's like? We're lucky with the NHS, aren't we? But you know what it's like when you go on holiday? You won't go on holiday without getting holiday insurance just in case you got sick. And it's
Well,
just the same.
yeah, this is it. It's not enough people are aware of these things, and fortunately, what you're doing at the moment, like going out to clubs and speaking to people, using using the power of your network to, to to invest in yourself. Obviously, you had that relationship with Joe that he came and he saw that there was something that you needed, and he obviously he invested his time to help you, and you've invested your time and resources into him to grow. And it's really, really important, guys. So, guys really do, get in touch with David in terms of, having a conversation with him. I can vouch for him. He'll put the time and the effort in for you to find out what is the best policy for you. He's not a pushy salesman. It's not just him saying that. I can vouch for that. And, it really, really is important. So if you're not covered, give him a
I
shout.
think just one final thing on that, Chris, as well. My job is I'm regulated by financial services. So, you know, these are like, I can't get my job wrong. If you've got cover in place and your cover is the best cover at that time for you, I will leave it where it is and I will say that is brilliant cover. I
Yeah,
can't do anything with that because you might take something out if you take something out at 25, yeah, and say God forbid at 30 you might have had your mother when you got to 30 you might have had your mum who's had breast cancer or somebody you might have had an illness. So for me to go and flip your policy to something else, I'm actually going to put you in a worse position.
yeah,
So I would never do that. And that's another reason why you use an expert instead of just going to comparison sites, because I can look at your policy and say to you, that is perfect for you and your family, leave it where it is. Or, you know what, we'll leave that where it is, but you probably want to look at getting something like this in place because of this, this, and this. And as you say, I'm not, well, I just know. I'd rather have a conversation in a coffee and help you and walk away from a sale than put you in the worst position. It's just something that I would never do.
exactly. Well, Dave, I really do appreciate your time this morning. It's always good to catch up. I'm sure we'll have another catch up in the next few weeks anyway, and see what's going on. But
To say let's get a sports one next time.
yeah, we'll definitely do that.
Appreciate you talking about my journey, but let's get some more time in and go into depth a little bit about my football career if you want like that, and get into like the ins and outs of performance for yourself.
No, that's absolutely perfect. No, I appreciate that. Well, thanks very much for your time, and yeah, we shall catch up soon.
Top man, cheers, Chris. You take care, pal.